This is the Impressions Exchange Podcast. Where all topics impacting the graphic imaging and printing industry are addressed via in-depth news coverage, analysis, and timely interviews.
Hey, Printing United Alliance fans and members who are joining us here at Printing United Expo. We are so excited. It is day 2 of the Printing United Expo 2024 in fabulous Las Vegas as we sit and record this podcast episode. But I don't just want to focus on the Alliance because, friends, today I am also here with some very important friends and partners. ASI is joining us for this episode. So let's bring in our guests. We have Tim Andrews, who is the president and CEO of ASI. Tim, welcome.
Great. Thank you, Cassie. Great to be here.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have Dave Leskusky, who's the president over at Printing United Alliance.
Hey, Cassie. Thanks for having us.
Of course. And obviously big news for both of our companies this year that I think, really excited the industry, invigorated the industry. And that was the partnership between ASI and Printing United Alliance, which is really exciting. I do want to kind of start this episode by backtracking a little bit to the beginning, where this all starts. So talk to me, Tim, you can start about how the partnership between the Alliance and ASI really came to fruition.
We were doing some research about a year and a half ago, and that research showed us that about 20% of the current 20,000 ASI members are already selling print. They've been selling print, they came into the promotional space, and another 20% are either decorating or interested in decorating techniques and understanding more about what that technology looks like. And that seemed like just a natural time to reach out to Dave, who I've known a bit at Printing United, and say, what are the possibilities here for us to come together in some sort of logical way? And so that kicked off, I think, the conversation, and then Dave and I took it from there.
Yeah, we actually met at a promo event in Vegas, oddly enough, and had our initial conversation, and we saw the same thing. I mean, the majority of our commercial printing members, wide format members, certainly the apparel decoration community, they've all been dabbling in promo for over a decade. But what we didn't have within the Alliance or even within the media brands was really this strong technology partner and an education partner to help our members really get to that next step. So, talking to Tim and his team, ASI was like a perfect fit for what we were looking to do.
Yeah. And I have to say, what a perfect place to me is when you're in the middle of all the events and the technology and all of the excitement is swirling in the air. It gets all the ideas going and you start thinking, what are the options? So many opportunities.
Well, especially when you start saying how much is overlapping among and between all these spaces and how they are coming together. Because we've got 40% of our members who are already in one of the two spaces. The other 60% want to understand them better. And how over time, as these spaces come together into one offering, how do we educate people about that? How do we bring people together? And how do both institutions really have our role, which is to help build businesses and help entrepreneurs understand how to build their business. And I think that was the common value we had in that.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of ASI members and Printing United Alliance members, it's that fear of the unknown. They hear things, whether it's through listening to your podcast or other media channels about what they should be doing, but they don't know really how to take that first step. Where is it logical? So when we started having conversations, it was about we see the road, we see where we should take it, but how do we help them get in the car and take that first drive? And without education, we're never going to be able to change things, and that's really what we're trying to provide on both sides. Tim's organization helping our printer members understand the promo space, and then us trying to help them understand the print space.
I was going to say, it sounds like a big goal of this partnership is the education aspect of it and that component. Very interesting.
Absolutely, and you have your show and all the different events you have. We have 3 major shows across the year as well, and those are great times to bring people together, and really explain to them. And as Dave said, this is a learning for everyone, and especially for people that their initial reaction may be, I'm not really sure I can do this, or what do I do, and how does it work, and what are the margins, and do I have to have inventory? And I think explaining all those things allows them to really build their businesses, and if you can add 20% incremental revenue to your business through promo over the course of 2 or 3 years, that's an incredible profitable activity for yourselves.
Absolutely. And I think that goes along with something that's really heavy focus from the Alliance side, me coming from the Alliance side, is that idea of convergence. And we are seeing that huge. And I'm obviously heavily involved in the apparel side, so we see that huge tying
Right.
to the promo side. So talking about like the next big announcement that came following the initial partnership is the dual membership. Was that always part of the plan, Dave?
Yes, it was actually part of the plan. We were trying to figure out exactly what that meant, how we were going to roll it out, how we were going to communicate it. Obviously, the membership from the Alliance side, as Tim mentioned earlier, when we did some early analysis, it was kind of pleasantly surprised to see how many of our members were already members of ASI or already in promo. So for us, we were kind of looking at that, going that this is a huge opportunity. But our goal is from the Alliance is we're about 4,700 members now. I'd like to see that get to 10,000, 15,000 members because there's so much more we can do in this market. I mean, just the apparel decoration community alone, we're just scratching the surface on membership. And when Tim and I were talking, we both said, this idea of bringing both organizations together under one roof and giving them this opportunity for dual membership is certainly going to entice more people to join the Alliance because now they're getting a great partner on the other side, on the promotional product side with ASI.
Tim, can you walk me through a little bit what the process of building this dual membership looked like? What are some of the challenges that we have faced at this stage, and how are we looking at that?
Yeah, I think first it was who are we going to offer this to? So we started with distributors, and we said people that have not been part of Printing United or ASI in recent times, and really targeting and focusing on those folks. And obviously there's a lot of them that are walking the show floor here, and the people that are reading our respective magazines and interacting with our media, those are really important partners. And so that was really the beginning. And I think we knew that this was going to be sort of a stage one. And then how do we reach out to people that are ASI members but not yet Printing United, or Printing United and not yet ASI? And that's all about the distributor space. And then, of course, there's the very exciting supplier space on our side of this because, Printing United really wants to have the suppliers in our industry bring their people to this show so they can see the decorating techniques that are here, this big equipment and big machinery. We have 3,000 suppliers that are decorating promotional products, and those are huge opportunities, I think, for Printing United. So we really think that it's a two-way process of education, dual membership, individual membership, and then attendance at our respective shows.
Yeah, and I think the supplier side is really important because I think for us, as we looked at the sale of print and promo marketing to ASI, one of the things when we first started talking about dual membership was how could we do this if we were going to compete in the media and the event space. So that was kind of the first leg to kind of get that past us to where we could really look at what a partnership actually means. So now, for us, being able to go and talk to those 3,000 supplier members that while they don't consider themselves printers, they all put ink on something. They're all decorating a product. We have a lot of them that are here, but out of that 3,000, we might have a couple hundred of them, walking around the show. How do we get, 1,000, 2,000, 2,500 of them coming here, understanding that this is the place that you go to see any type of decoration on any type of product and what other possibilities are here. When Tim, this is the first time you've been to the show.
Yes.
Wow.
I gave you a list of people just to go see and people that he probably hadn't been exposed to before that are just doing phenomenal things with decoration and imprinting on all types of different substrates. And I want to get all of his 3,000 members coming to the show to experience that same thing.
And really, there's another piece of this from my perspective. As we started chatting and really digging into this, it isn't just about the attendance at each other's shows and education. There's another very important piece, which is the lobbying that Printing United does on behalf of the industry that is largely represented in our space. Those 3,000 suppliers in the promotional products industry really have not had a voice in Washington or in the individual states about all the different kinds of regulations and other issues. And so from my perspective, the promotional products industry doesn't have that covered. And I think that Printing United is such an incredible job, really maybe frankly an underestimated job of doing that. And to me, that is a huge benefit to everything that we do in the promo space that is part of this membership activity and bringing these organizations so closely together.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because when we go talk to the Hill and when you're out talking to Congress and you look at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, promotional product suppliers or even distributors that print, they're not looked at as printers. Right, so they're just part of the other segment of the manufacturing process. So giving them now a voice. So when we talk about the ban of potentially chlorinated pigments or carbon black, that has huge impact and ripple effects throughout the printing industry, but certainly the promo industry. So if we can, by our lobbying efforts, help the promotional product side as well, it's just an added benefit to this partnership.
Yeah, I can personally say how many people have reacted in surprise that the Alliance offers that and does that. It's pretty incredible. What I'm really hearing from both of you is how not just the membership, but the partnership between ASI and the Alliance is fulfilling that goal of education, that goal of supporting its members in the best way possible. It's, and you guys said it right out of the gate. The goal here is to educate and help support our community. I'm getting a strong sense of that. Like, here's every box that it checks, that it supports the industry as a whole.
Well, if we're protecting and supporting and serving the industries that we represent, then all boats rise, right?
Yes.
And it allows every business to grow and every business to become more profitable and more competitive in a space that's very competitive and radically changing. This is not about just learning about the industries that we represent, but also the incredible changing technologies and ways that you can do, the decoration and all the other parts of this industry. It's very exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think Tim said it earlier. It's about growth, right? It's about helping his members and helping our members, and how do we help them look at new business opportunities and help them grow and help them do that effectively, efficiently. There are so many opportunities here, and it's not just about it's not really about slicing the pie differently, and I think that happens a lot where it's like, well, if a printer becomes a promotional products distributor, a promo distributor is going to lose business. There's a lot of other avenues here. There's printers that should be partnering with promotional products distributors, in both ways. There could be potentially succession planning that we talk about down the road, where it's just as an overall industry. I don't think it's really about staying in your lane anymore. I think it's about how do we work together as different industries to partner first and foremost where everybody gets to grow. And I think that's what we're going to do here. And I think education is that key component to making sure that we can do that effectively.
It's really widening the highway, right?
Yeah,
it's not staying in our lane,
right.
it's widening the highway.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
And that's what we really need to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people often put their head down and sort of, they know the thing that they do and they know the business they have. They don't step back so often and say to their client or their prospect, what's your overall business problem? What are we trying to solve here?
Right.
And listen for the cues that say, I can solve all of those problems and not just the one that has been my lane.
Right. Yeah, great example of that. And I keep going back to this podcast because I love it. It was the one that you did with David Clifton from Alpha and Jeremy Picker.
Yeah.
Jeremy said in that podcast that for 10 years he had looked at adding hard goods, to his apparel decor, and he just kept putting it off. And then he finally did. Well, how do we accelerate that 10 years to be 6 months or a year? And how do you work with the right partners to help you get there faster, where that becomes a no-brainer, not something that you stress over for 10 years until you finally take the plunge? Right. That was a phenomenal podcast.
Thanks. And Jeremy is like the living, breathing example of why something like this makes so much sense. So I'm glad you brought that up. I am curious. So we're seeing a lot of natural tie-in convergence between apparel decorators and promo products suppliers, distributors. There's sort of a natural, I guess, convergence happening there that we're seeing, and that's really strong, and that really supports that side. I'm very curious how both of you think that this is going to play out with the other segments of the printing industry. Where do we really see this benefiting beyond apparel decorators, beyond promo distributors? I'm thinking big. I'm thinking commercial printers, wide format printers, those guys. Where do we see that?
Well, when I look at our core base, our commercial printers, our wide format printers. So if you think about commercial printers, a great example of this, and I use this all the time, is direct mail, right? So you're a direct mail printer. Let's say you're doing direct mail for nonprofits, right? So you get a nonprofit mailer. What is generally in every nonprofit mailer that you get? It's a premium or a freemium. It's a tote bag. It's a calculator. It's a pen. It's something that they try to entice you to donate. Well, in the past, a lot of commercial printers, they would do the direct mail. They have a warehouse, and they're doing the fulfillment, and they're putting out all that stuff in the direct mail piece to go out, but they're not selling the promotional item. They're letting somebody else do that. I think that is a no-brainer. On the wide format side, you think about, we're in an election year. Right. So, from an election perspective, they're doing yard signs. They're doing all types of signage. Well, are they doing buttons? Are they doing pens? Are they doing mugs at the same time? So it's really about the customer, and it's about the artwork. And if you have both of those, it's really just about a bolt on sale, right? And again, I go back to the partnership idea. If I was a commercial printer, I would probably not go out and just start my own distributorship unless I was going to hire for it, up front. I would talk to one of Tim's 20,000 members and basically look at what vertical markets do we serve. Am I in healthcare? Am I in financial services? Who can I talk to that might be already in this, where we can partner together before I take the plunge into doing this and kind of, walk before I run.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I think for me, what is exciting for me is for a distributor or for a supplier walking your large show floor here and seeing the capabilities and then saying, I'm a supplier, I'm looking for equipment. Wow, this equipment does something I've never thought of doing before, right? Or being or walking as a distributor or a supplier and saying, we don't really do packaging in the promotional space. I mean, we have some packaging for certain, but we don't necessarily elevate the value or the perceived value of a promotional product by doing really great packaging, which of course lends itself to great branding on the outside of the package, inside the package. And so we have some great suppliers that do that in our space. But when I was walking around here, it really made me get a sense of, gosh, every writing instrument could be in a 25-cent little sleeve that is branded on the outside just as it is on the inside. And that brings that perceived value of the recipient from this to 100% versus a 20% value. And so I think that opening your eyes and saying, here's ideas I've never thought of and ways that I can use things that I see on the show floor to either up my game as a supplier or up my game as a distributor. To me, that is really is an exceptional opportunity for people.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't talk about as part of that is that, sustainability in both industries has become obviously a super hot topic. And when you walk around this show floor, looking at the new equipment, the new technologies out there, sustainability is so much better than we were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. So if I'm a supplier looking at some of the stuff that's on this floor right now, you're doing a much better job of carrying that sustainability initiative with all of these new things. Maybe it's water-based inks, maybe it's other substrates, than probably what they may be decorating with right now in their plants.
Well, I took a video. There's a screen cleaning. I'll call it a shower, for screens, and it was a phenomenal. And the whole point was they're capturing what could have been going down a drain, right? And they're capturing. There's an entire process to then cleanse that water. So that gets people excited. And if you're a supplier, you're a decorator, or you're a distributor, you can video that and show your clients, wow, this is the stuff we're doing in our industry to save the environment and to be sustainable. So I think all of that messaging is really important and exciting me. I spent 10 minutes in that booth, to understand what was going on.
That is such a crucial point, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because we were actually talking about this earlier with a couple podcast guests. Is I don't know that really many of us understand how extensive and what the capabilities of all of this technology are. And so by really opening up the channels to other people who have not previously seen this stuff is mind-blowing. You really don't know. And then to market that to your customers, paying it forward, you're right, because the messaging has to be paid forward to help your business grow. As a decorator, as a distributor, your business needs to grow too, and that's how you're marketing it. Like, yes, we do sustainable things. Here's how, let me show you. Yes, we have this technology. Here's how, let me show you. That's where you understand all of it coming together. It's really exciting.
I mean, I would be videoing half of the floor probably if I were a supplier or distributor. Bring it back to my colleagues to explain to them how we can do better in our shop. Or here's how our industry works to really understand what goes into what we do. I mean, it's pretty it's pretty phenomenal. You walk around, huge investments, $200,000 or $300,000 investments, and seeing how exciting this is. I mean, I'm blown away. I'll be back. How's that?
Is 3 days not enough for you?
3 days is not enough.
I love that. Okay, guys, before we wrap up the podcast, anything else that our listeners need to know about the membership, the partnership, anything you really want to hammer home to listeners?
More to come. How's that?
Oh.
Yeah, how's that for a cliffhanger?
Yeah.
So definitely have some exciting things on the horizon that we'll be releasing soon.
I love that. Nothing like a good cliffhanger. Where can listeners go to learn more about the membership? Where should we send them?
ASICentral.com.
Love it.
Great spot to visit, and I'm easy to find. My email is tim.andrews@asicentral.com. So send me an email about anything, especially as you see things we ought to be doing that we're not yet, because we need to have those ideas from folks too. And I'll even forward them over to David, unless they're really good ones, I'll keep for myself.
And for us, it is printing.org. And for me, probably the best way to get me is on LinkedIn. So find me at Dave Leskusky on LinkedIn.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, Tim, Dave, for joining us. Looking forward to more to come.
Thanks for having us,
Thank you,
Cassie.
It was awesome.